Back. And today I have my special guest from Crayons to CEO, your journey from mompreneur to $1 million business owner. Other than ladies, Jessica Danel.
Yes. Hello.
Welcome, Miss Jessica on Entrepreneurship 101. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yes. My name is Jessica Danel, and I currently I work in broadcast media, but I also have a podcast called Just Saying with Jessica Danel, and I wrote a book about my crazy life. And in there, we talk about my journey through being an entrepreneur and how I built a $1 million business from my living room, and then how I had to sacrifice it for my kids. So I guess do you want me to start from the beginning?
Well, before that, here on Entrepreneurship 101, we celebrate you, Miss Jessica, with my cheering squad. Thank you. Hoping for more and more encouragement. So today, let's talk about being a journey.
So being a mompreneur means you're, when you're a man and you're an entrepreneur, now don't take this the wrong way, anybody out there listening, you have a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, yes. And obviously you're taking risks, but so are the mompreneurs. But the mompreneurs, we have to do it with toddlers at our ankles, holding onto our legs, wanting another bottle or needing a changing or fighting over toys with their sibling or the change over the laundry, and all while you're trying to build a business. And can be daunting. It's a lot of work. You've got to want to do it and you've got to stick to it. I always say domination by determination. That's actually a chapter in my book. My crazy book that I wrote about my crazy life. It's called Bucket List from a Redneck Girl. And it's Bucket List from a Redneck Girl is because I come from a small farming town. And it's that's where the redneck part comes in, because it's, when you're outside, you're working in the farm, it's redneck, right? Well, anyways. But yeah, so when you're a mompreneur, you've got to try to not sacrifice your time with your family while you're trying to build your empire or, your tiny little business, or it could just be anything, creating bows for a fair, and you want to sell them at the fair, bows for your daughter's hair. I used to do that, and I didn't sell them, but I would make all my daughter's hair bows, and everyone would be like, you need to sell those. They're so good. But anyways, so I started a business. I had some background in early childhood education. I was a preschool teacher for many years. And so I decided one day I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom for my son. At the time, he was 2.5. And I decided that I wanted to start a preschool. And so, or a daycare, a family daycare. And so I did that. It was very small. You can only have like 8 kids. And I started to get, by word of mouth, people wanting to be, in my daycare. So over time, my husband and I decided to build onto the house. So now the kids would have their own entrance to the home, their own bathroom. And in fact, they would not even need to be in my house because this room was very large, huge. It was like a preschool classroom, basically. And I designed it like a magazine. So it was very beautiful, lots of toys. I taught preschool. So basically I was teaching preschool in that room in my home. And I hired a staff member, and we had like 14 kids, but we actually had more than that because some kids would come half day and then more kids would come in the afternoon. So again, I was having a huge waiting list, and I decided to venture out, and I purchased a business at a church. Now, it wasn't a religious venture. I just was able to rent this building, which had a play yard, from the church. And I did that. And I had like 42 kids and a staff of 8. And that, again, I had a waiting list and I was doing very well. And my preschool was getting known as being like the best one to go to. And that has a lot to do with, your curriculum, how you're teaching them, letting communicating with the parents. There was a lot of, parts of the business. It wasn't just, it wasn't just like, oh, your kids are coming to play and then you pick them up and you pay me. No, there was a lot of learning going on and a lot of communicating with the parents, pictures that you would, little fun things that you give the families, keepsakes, and, Christmas pageants and things like that. You know what I mean? So there's a lot involved when you have a preschool, because parents, there's some expectations from the parents that you do a lot for them. And so we were doing all those things, and I was approached by somebody and it was asked if I wanted to build a commercial property from scratch. I would be a 10,000 square foot building, and I'd have a 30,000 square foot play yard. So it was going to be a huge backyard, which I divided into sections: the toddlers, the 4-year-olds, and the school agers. And so it was huge. Lots of grass, trees. We had the climbing structures with the little squishy stuff underneath. It was all done up to the nines. And the inside was like a magazine. It was like, if anybody out there knows about preschool, you look up lakeshore.com, and you open up that magazine. That was what my school looked like. It was just beautiful. And we had like a security system for parents to get in. They had to swipe a card to get through to enter into the building. And we had computers, huge. We had its own kitchen. We had a cook. We had a van that we would transport children in. And it was basically $1 million preschool put together. The actual shell of the business was $4.2 million to build. And then I got an SBA loan. Now, SBA stands for Small Business Association. And I got a loan. It's funny because I have a degree now. I have a master's degree now, but at the time I didn't. I had a child development like AA degree, like any mommy can go get that. I didn't know anything about business, nothing. And so at the time when the gentleman asked me if I wanted to go in and do this preschool on the commercial property, I had to research. So back then, I think this was 2006 when he approached me. And internet was, the place to go to learn things. So I just Googled how to build a business plan, and I built one from scratch. And I actually went and got like a report, some statistics to show the need for preschool in the area, and there's a big need. And so that's all I needed, to show the need, show I can make a profit, and how I was going to make my profit. And you show like how you're going to do it from month 1 to the 3rd year of business, something like that. And I showed them how to do that, and I got a loan for $700,000, and that paid for the inside, because I was given a shell, and that's just like the walls and plumbing and stuff like that. But I had to pay for all the fixtures, the flooring, the walls that I wanted to put up, and the doors, and just all the things that make up a building. And of course, I designed my building on a napkin, and I gave it to the contractor, and I says, I want it to look like this, which I don't recommend for anybody out there. But then, because what happened was, a lot of the times, because I was there every day, they didn't like me too much because I was up their butt with a flashlight almost. I was there at the construction site all the time, making sure that the sinks were low enough for the kids, that the toilets were the small kind, that the drinking fountains were low enough for the kids to be able to drink, that type of thing, that the the viewing, because I wanted to be able for the parents to see into the room. So I wanted those windows to be high enough so the kids couldn't really see the parents there, but the parents could view in and see the kids. A lot of little things. So I was always making change orders, which didn't make anybody happy, but cost me a little bit extra in the long run. But the school turned out exactly how I wanted it. It was beautiful. In fact, before we opened, the whole year, well, it was like 9 months it took to build the school, which was actually pretty quick. For the whole 9 months or a little bit longer, I was pre-selling parents. I would meet the parents there at the site, and it would be a dirt lot, and sometimes there was like a metal structure, but you really couldn't see what was going on. And I says, okay, over there is going to be the 4-year-old room, and over here is going to be the office, and here's the kitchen, and here's the toddler room, and the infant room, and the school drama rooms over here. And I was just showing them everything, pulling out the lakeshore where I bought all of the $100,000 in toys. And at the time, $100,000 filled the whole school, a 10,000 square foot school. And I pre-sold 140 families 9 months before the school even opened. And they paid me for their first month and the registration fee, which is non-refundable. And they paid it all in advance. I mean, I want to say it was like $100,000. I'm way more than that before I even opened the door. And so we opened the door on day one. Can you imagine opening your school with like 140 kids piling in? And then you had like 25 staff members, and you had to be prepared. And so there was a lot of work that went into preparing every single second of the day. And it was wonderful. And the school was doing great. But then it opened in 2008. Yeah, because by the time I got my loan, it took a little time. They started building in 2007, and the school opened in 2008. And right around that time, the economy started to go into the crapper. And so we were good for about a year and a half, and then families were losing their jobs left and right. A lot of firemen were losing their jobs. We had policemen. Those are a lot of my clientele. It was crazy how I had that. Just everybody was just, when dad's off work, dad is now watching the kids. They don't need daycare. They can't afford it. It's a luxury. If not both parents are working, it's a luxury most people cannot afford. And so we went from at the highest about 188 students to 88 students. And I was shelling money into the school, making sure that all my teachers were getting paid and that everything was working. And during that time, I was pregnant with my second child. And she was born with a heart condition, and she needed open heart surgery. And I was told that I could not leave her side. Like literally, I had to, because her heart condition is called tetralogy of Fallot. And if these kids, they will start to fall asleep when you're feeding them. And a lot of them just pass away. Their hearts stop. It's just really crazy. So my daughter, she had her surgery and it went well, thank goodness, but it took 5 months. She didn't have it until she was 5 months. But my school was struggling. I wasn't there at the school. And the landowner, because I was leasing the property from the landowner, he kept begging me to sell him the school. And I was like, at the time, well, I know a lot more now about business than I did at the time. But at the time, I because I was probably just postpartum a little bit from the pregnancy and all the drama. And when he asked me to sell, I said, okay. And so he didn't end up paying me what we agreed upon, and we were in mediation for a very long time, and he was trying to bleed me out with my attorney. And it just did not turn out well for me at the end. We were grossing $1 million, and I did not make that much on the school at the end of the day. I can tell you that right now. It was sad because, as an entrepreneur, you build something from the ground up, from your living room, essentially. It becomes your baby. It becomes your, the one thing that you put your blood, sweat, and tears into. And I just decided that I was going to let it go because during as my daughter was getting older, we found out she had more health problems and needed her mommy to be there for her. And I chose to be a mom instead of an entrepreneur, essentially, at the time. And I gave up my business. It's sad because, you know, he's still running that school, as it's the largest preschool in my town still to this day. He's still using my contracts and policies. And I'm sure he's doing very well for himself. I built him a great school, put it that way. So sometimes I kind of feel like I always say I could do that again, like in a heartbeat. I know exactly how to build a school. And if anybody ever wanted advice, like I would be here to help them, because I think we need more daycare, not less daycare in our society. We are desperate for childcare out there, good ones, you know, good ones, where you're actually teaching the kids and they're learning to be kind to one another, you know, stuff like that. But so what happened was the school went bye-bye. And what do you do when you're an entrepreneur? You know, you constantly have things flinging around in your head, like, what am I going to do next? So I ended up, I started a photography business, and I'm a pretty good photographer. I learned, I like doing the editing part of it, was fun. And that's where I got real creative. I didn't think I was a creative person, and I found out I was. Then I decided to go back to school, and I got my degree. And then I got a job in broadcast media working for a local television station. And then during that time, I got my master's degree. And then I wrote a book about my crazy life, Bucket List from a Redneck Girl. And it's a very funny book. Lots of things have happened to me, from car explosions, school shooting, high school shooting, a Jerry Springer wedding. I mean, let me tell you, it was crazy. And just so many things that have happened to me. I can't even explain it to you in just these few minutes. So go get the book. It's a great read. It's easy read. And then I thought to myself, well, how am I supposed to get this book out to the masses? Well, that's where the podcast came in. And it's called Just Saying with Jessica Danel. And I talk about things, everyday things, from relationships to new books that coming out, to family problems, you know, how to navigate your kids how to navigate through, like, drug abuse when your kids are on drugs, or, you know, spanking throughout the generations, what's it like and how is it really working today. And because, you know, you spank your kid now, you're probably going to, you know, CPS or jail. You know, they're calling 911 on you. Back in the day, you know, you got a mouthful of soap. Now you can't do that no more. So we talk about just different things like that. And I've got some really great people that come on, and it's fun. It's funny, and it's a laid back show. It's how I'm talking right now is basically how we chit chat. It's like a lot of people are starting to feel like they're a fly on the wall and liking to see what we're talking about. And I ask silly questions, and I try to get a little personal. But it's fun, and I'm meeting so many great people, and I'm enjoying it a lot. And then I get to come on to great podcasts like yours and talk about my crazy life. And hopefully I connect with somebody out there that might be going through it, or, you know, might want some advice, to reach out to me and help. I can help you if you have any questions or anything. If you're out there and maybe you do want to start a daycare, you know, somebody that might want one, I can help. I mean, I'm not a coach or a guru or anything like that. I'm not out there trying to promote that, but I always like to help people that are, you know, interested in the things that I'm interested in. So anyways, I didn't even let you ask any questions. I just kind of talked the whole time.
Well said. Well said, Miss Jessica. So, for a woman listening who is in the thick of it, maybe building a business, maybe navigating a child's need, maybe feeling like lost herself somewhere along the way, what is the one thing you want her to know about what's possible on the other side?
Well, I truly believe that you can get to your goals by just taking baby steps, one little step at a time. You know, you like, oh, I got to cook dinner. We'll go cook dinner. And after dinner, when the kids are after their bath and they're tucked in, spend a half an hour and work on, you know, the things that you think that you want to work on, your goals. I always say an easy thing to start with is your story. Like I always say I wear my personality on my sleeve and I carry my stories in my back pocket. Anybody out there that has a lot of stories in their back pocket, I swear it'll be really good if you write your story down, because you know what, you're going to connect with so many people. They're going to go, man, I thought you were writing about me, because your story is crazy. It's just like my life, or I know somebody that went through that. It's so crazy, like you went through that too. So you'll connect with people in a great way. And so sometimes you can always just start there, write your story down, and you want to do a podcast. I mean, it's not hard. I learned from YouTube. I figured it out how to do it. And I have this background already in my office. So I said, why not use this? This is great. I get compliments on it. But I feel like just take one step at a time and just make a little bit of time for yourself, and take baby steps. And if you don't know how to do it, I swear, internet will teach you how, for sure.
Hmm. Well, thank you for that, Miss Jessica. And to wrap up our discussion for today, if you could sit down with the younger version of yourself, the one who's just starting the preschool or the navigating those early years of marriage and motherhood, or that one who felt too broken to believe that she was meant for more, what would you want her to know about the woman she would become?
Well, first of all, that you are skinny, even though you think you're not skinny. Tell my younger self that. Also, I would tell myself, you're going to fall down a lot, and it's okay, because that's what God wants you to do. You have to fall, and eventually you find your path, and you're going to end up where you're supposed to be every single time, regardless of how you think the journey is going to be. You're going to be where you're supposed to be at the end. So, yep.
Yes, and thank you for that, Miss Jessica. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your book, your podcast, or anything you want to promote on Entrepreneurship 101?
Just go to justsaying.net. That's JESSSAYING.net, and to learn more about my podcast, my social media, and my book.
Yes, people, just saying. Yeah. So, Miss Jessica, thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
What do you got, people? See you soon.